What's going on, everybody? It is that time again. The Sooners Illustrated Podcast, episode 117.
117.
On this Monday, October 7th, 2024. It is OU Texas week, Red River Rivalry week, Red River Shootout week, whatever you call it. It's one of the best games in the world, and we're all fired up. We're all going to be there this weekend. We're very excited. Coming off the bye week, we're rested, we're rejuvenated, we're ready to go. Today on the show, normally it's obviously a game reaction Monday. Don't have a game coming off the bye week, so we're going to be a lot of looking ahead. What does Oklahoma got to do the rest of the season to pile up some wins? The OU schedule the rest of the way, maybe not as hard as we once thought it was. We'll discuss that as well, and of course, we'll get into the Texas game just a little bit. We'll have our game preview later in the week, but we'll scratch the surface a little bit later on the Red River Rivalry. So, guys, first off, like I said, had the bye week. It's weird this year because of the double bye. With the way Labor Day landed, every team gets 2 byes this year. So OU's going to play 5 more games and have a bye again. But even with that, it kind of feels like we're starting like an unofficial second half. Like they had Michael Hawkins get his first start. They got that big road win in Auburn. Now they had the bye week to kind of rest up and work out some more kinks, get him as ready as possible, maybe get healthier, and then get ready for, obviously, arguably the biggest game of the year with number 1 Texas coming up on Saturday down in Dallas. So my question for you guys is, what's the key here for Oklahoma? I mean, you're 4-1. You're still in good shape. I think most fans would have, taken 4-1, but been acceptable of 4-1 at this point if you told them that before the season. Still a lot of big games coming up. What are the keys for Oklahoma moving forward? What do you guys need to see? If I said Oklahoma wins 8, 9, maybe 10 games this season, what definitely is going to have to happen for that to be the case? What's some keys the rest of the way for the Sooners?
Yeah, I mean, defensively, they just have to kind of keep up what they've been doing, but also clean up a couple areas. I know Brent Venables talked about it early last week, but just getting better tackling. The last couple of weeks, they've had a few more missed tackles than they would like to have. So clean up that stuff so you minimize, yards after catch, yards after carry, stuff like that. But also just tamp down on these, big pass plays that they've been giving up. For as good as this defense has been, they've been susceptible to giving up some of these big passing plays. We saw it more so against Auburn than anything else. Obviously, Tennessee had that, 64-yard touchdown, I want to say. But then Auburn had 5 passes of 30-plus yards, including 2 of 40-plus yards. One of those came on the last play of the game when Oklahoma was just keeping everything in front of it, not trying to give up a touchdown. So I get that, but still gave up 2 long passing touchdowns in that game. So 3 over the last 2 games. Something you just need to, clean up, get a little bit better on the technique, on your form, all those little things that can make a difference. And then offensively, I think it really boils down to a couple things. Like, one, you need Mike Hawkins to continue to take care of the ball. He has not committed a turnover in 6 quarters as the QB1 essentially. And they just need to do better on third downs. They're one of the worst teams in the country right now on third downs. And a lot of that is just getting into, more manageable situations in early down works you have in, 3rd and short as opposed to 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9. I think if they can, improve their percentages on third downs and continue to limit turnovers, that this offense will, start to, regress toward the mean. I don't think that, this is not going to be a world-beating offense at any point this season, I don't think. But I think it can be better than what we saw through those first, 4 or 5 games in particular. They can just make marginal improvements in those areas.
Sure.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Like, some people call this game the Red River Shootout. I have my opinion, it's the rivalry, but the shootout's what they call it. You cannot get into games and be in shootouts. Like, that's just what it is. They can't be in there. So the defense has to not give up those big plays, as Tom said. Now, obviously, that front 7 has been really good this year. They've done really good things, and the back half, the safeties have caused some of these turnovers, which OU is some of the best in the nation at causing turnovers. But they can't give up those big plays, those times where there's cornerbacks on one-on-one situations and just give up leverage and things like that. That has to be minimized to go forward. If they want to win a bunch of these games, they're going to have to ride on the defense. We've been saying that since a lot of this OU offense has been injured. That's what it is. And I think on the offensive side as well, that's exactly what it is. They got to get more healthy. And I know this bye week should have helped out a lot of that. Let's see where we are with some of the guys coming back in, but just getting healthy, because I think the personnel they have, will do great if everybody's on the field together. I mean, that's typically what it is. And we came into the season thinking Jackson Arnold's got all these weapons. He got all these guys he can throw to. The running backs are good. Gavin Sawchuk's back. All that stuff. So getting back to that. So that's what it's going to be, I think.
Yeah, health is huge for me as well. The offensive line is in the best place it's been, following the Auburn game. Continue that. Give these guys a chance to build some chemistry. That was the first time that they had really their full group all season, against Auburn. So that's big. And then, they got to get at least one or two, but let's not be greedy for now. One of these receivers back. You would presume that would be Deion Burks be next up to return. Yeah. Hopefully he can play against Texas. We did the game preview before the Auburn game. His status was up in the air for that. I personally thought, talking to people around the team, that he probably was going to be able to play. Obviously, it was ruled out on Thursday night. So hopefully you can get him back sooner rather than later. Same thing with Jalil Farouk. Obviously broke his foot in the opener. That was 6 to 8 weeks, what Brent Venables said then. So doing calendar math, 6 weeks would be this weekend. So again, hopefully soon you can get him back, because that would make a world's difference to even get one of them back. So that's going to be huge. Tatum as well. But I also think on the defensive side also, they've been pretty healthy. There's some guys missing, some key names. Kendall Dolby's out for the year. We haven't seen Deshaun McCullough yet, although it sounds like he's on the way back. Obviously, Gentry Williams has been really in and out. But for the most part, they've been pretty healthy. That needs to be maintained as best you can. I think that they can absorb the blows better than in the past, and better than the offense, certainly, because they're deeper. But we saw last year, Danny Stubbs missed a couple games. They lost those games. Again, they're deeper this year, all that. But maintaining the health has been big as to why they've been so good, frankly, defensively. So continuing that, I think, is going to be really, really important as well. And then, to kind of further the turnover conversation on the offensive side, defensive side, keep forcing them. They've been really good at forcing turnovers. Coming into the weekend, they were number 3 in the country in turnover margin. That's with the offense turning it over a ton earlier in the year. And that's because the defense has just been piling them up all season long. So giving Michael Hawkins short fields, all those types of things are going to be really, really important, especially in these bigger games like coming up this weekend. So I think the turnover margin, just kind of in general, is going to be really important for Oklahoma. They're not going to be good enough offensively to overcome losing the turnover battle week to week. So that's going to be important, I think, as well. Those are some big keys for me. Anything else, though, for you guys? 4-1, they're in decent shape. Offense did some good things. It feels like there's reason to be optimistic that they could still find a way to win some games here, but they're going to need to button up some things. Against Auburn, they still had some of their bad habits show up. And so if they're going to win games, they got to find a way to still improve quickly, obviously.
I came into this season knowing that it was going to be different with the 12-team playoff and things like that. It's like there's going to be a lot of games where you can lose and you can come back from it. It's going to be more like the NFL schedule, was what I was saying. But this Saturday, upset Saturday, that was insane. Everybody seemed like it was 5 ranked teams went down, and so
5 top 11 teams.
Yeah, just seeing that is
another one.
Yeah, seeing that is okay. There's definitely a difference. So I think OU is going to see a lot of this on their schedule. We're going to get into it here in a second, but it's like any given Saturday, any team could look like the best team in the country, as Alabama did against Georgia, and then turn around the next week and lose to Vanderbilt. It's going to be that type of situation, I think. So that's where I'm at from this. Yeah,
no, I joked about it a little bit on Saturday, especially in the SEC, with maybe the exception of Mississippi State, who is not good. Pretty much everybody else can beat anyone on any given day. If Vanderbilt's beating Alabama, anyone can beat anyone. And so that's kind of a good thing, but also kind of a scary thing, because all of these games are winnable. It also means all these games are losable. Exactly. It's going to be mass carnage the rest of the way. And on that note, so James brought it up. I wanted to bring up the schedule the rest of the way, because we've talked about the schedule to death. That was talked about all throughout the offseason. And the early part of this year is the schedule. Is the schedule as tough as we thought it was going to be? I wanted to kind of gauge you guys a little bit, get a little temperature check, because Ole Miss lost to Kentucky 2 weekends ago at home. Missouri looked awful. Texas A&M beat the brakes off them. Obviously, we all think Alabama's really good still. I don't think that changes, but they did just lose to Vanderbilt. LSU has kind of been, a little hit or miss on their level of play so far. Just a little temperature check for you guys on the difficulty of the schedule. Again, it's still tough. I don't think anybody's saying that these games are easy all of a sudden or, free gimme wins. But I think it's maybe a little more manageable than we once thought. Is that a fair assessment? Where you guys kind of at on that as far as kind of re-examining the schedule that Oklahoma has to navigate now, 5 weeks in?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's still a tough schedule. I think the one that probably looks the least daunting of that, I mean, obviously, like South Carolina aside, because we all kind of thought that they were going to be toward the bottom of the SEC to begin with. And plus, Oklahoma's got that game at home, homecoming weekend. But I think that trip to Missouri looks a lot more manageable now.
Sure.
Even before the loss to Texas A&M, Missouri looked pretty shaky the last 2 games against Boston College and Vanderbilt. And it just seemed like it was a culmination of those struggles finally coming to surface, and Missouri coming back down to reality a little bit. Credit to Texas A&M doing an incredible job right now under Mike Elko in his first year. They're a lot better than I thought they would be. I mean, they're sitting atop the SEC right now. They're 3-0 in the conference. They're the only team they've only team that's played 3 games to this point in SEC play, but they're sitting atop the conference midway through the season, which is not what I thought any of us maybe expected. But I think that Missouri game looks a lot more manageable. Ole Miss, you have to have a little bit of confidence just because, Kentucky kind of showed you the blueprint, like muddy that game up, drag them down into the mud and slow it down. And that's kind of what this Oklahoma defense is built to do.
Right.
Just slow these teams down and try to grind out games, and that's kind of what we're going to need to see Oklahoma do for the rest of the season moving forward. Alabama, I think, is still going to be tough. Like losing to Vanderbilt, yes, awful, shocking. First time Alabama's lost at Vanderbilt since 1984, so it's been 40 years since they've lost there. I mean, imagine my surprise. I was hiking out in Banff National Park in Canada over the weekend. I had no signal, like pretty much all day Saturday. Get back to the car, in the evening, and look at my phone, and I'm like, Vandy did what?
Yeah, what happened here?
Yeah. So, look, I figured Vandy was going to be a thorn in a lot of teams' sides this year with Diego Pavia at quarterback. I did not expect them to knock off Alabama like they did. I still think Alabama's going to be in good shape. They're not the Alabama that they were under Nick Saban, but they're still a really good team that's going to contend for a playoff spot, even with that hiccup against Vanderbilt. So that's still going to be a really tough game. And, the LSU game is still interesting to me. I kind of want to see how things shake out for LSU these next few weeks because, they haven't really been tested yet in SEC play. I mean, they had the game at South Carolina. They were off this past week, but, things are going to get a little tougher moving forward. I want to see how they handle that because obviously they've, won 4 straight since losing that season opener to USC. But, the schedule is obviously not as tough as we thought it might be at this point, but it is still not easy by any means.
Yeah, I think a lot of this is these teams are, I think, kind of what we expected, but they've shown that they can be beat, and I think that's the difference here. It's not just like a daunting task for me. I never thought LSU was the biggest challenge anyway. I thought their stadium and going over there at night and things like that was kind of what everybody was kind of hyping it up as to be. Is like it's going to be tough to win in that environment instead of just going against the team itself. I thought that was the difference there, but looking at Missouri, I didn't really think that they were world beaters either going into the season. I think that was kind of shown against Texas A&M because the way they got beat was like, okay, there's a lot of things that are wrong here that they need to work, they need to focus on. Their passing game was supposed to be their strength, but that didn't really pan out because I watched a lot of that game with our board members on the VIP side, watching and talked with them a lot throughout that game. It's just like their strength wasn't there. I mean, it wasn't there, and that hurt the entire team. And then Ole Miss is the most shocking to me. I think after their loss last week, right? They lost last week. Yeah. That was the most shocking to me because I thought Ole Miss was actually like a sleeper to win the SEC. And so seeing them be able to be slowed down, like their offense I thought was a juggernaut, seeing them be able to be slowed down, that changed a lot of the way I think about Ole Miss as well. But now saying all that, I'm not thinking, you're just going to all of a sudden just go in there and just beat them and things like that. It's still going to be a tough challenge because those teams are still good. Like even Alabama, you look at them defensively, they're not where they should be as an Alabama team. They're not there. I've seen people compare them to like OU's Lincoln Riley teams back in the day, like offensive juggernaut and just not any good on defense. And they got to be in a bunch of shootouts, things like that. I'm still waiting to see if that's true with more games under their belt, because it's just like the last 6 quarters for them have been really bad defensively. But I think that they're really good in the first half of the season. But we'll see what happens with them. So just that's what I'm recognizing about this schedule. Just there's some things that you can see that okay, there is a chance to beat this team now. There isn't just like a juggernaut. So that's where I'm at.
So let me ask you guys this. Back in the summer, I think it was maybe in July, it might have been during fall camp, we talked about what was Oklahoma's toughest game. And, back then, obviously the conversation centered mainly around, obviously Red River, maybe the trip to Ole Miss, maybe Alabama at home, maybe the trip to Death Valley. Where are you guys kind of at on that now? Because I think that conversation is even harder now. Would you think with more games you get more clarity? If anything, it's becoming a little muddier. I think Texas is probably the best team, but it's a neutral site. And Texas also hasn't really been tested either, frankly. I mean, their biggest game is going to Ann Arbor, which is not to say that's nothing, but Michigan clearly is not, anywhere close to the level that they were certainly a year ago or even the past few years. They've got some serious issues, especially on offense. They're just hanging on inside the AP top 25 right now. If you guys were to answer that question today, what would it be? Because I think you could talk me into a few different options for what the toughest game actually left on this thing is.
Yeah. I mean, it is tough. That Alabama game, I still can't get away from that one. Again, Alabama's a really good offensive team, and that one stands out, but you did have a hard time right now convincing me it's not Texas this weekend. Number 1 team in the country. They should be getting their starting quarterback. Quinn Ewers back this week after he'd missed 2+ games with a ab strain. Playing really good ball. Both offensively and defensively. Oklahoma goes into this game 2 touchdown underdogs. Starting a true freshman quarterback in that game, just his second career start. Questions on offense, defense obviously playing well, but I think with the circumstances, I think that it will probably be the Texas game. Even though you're coming off the bye, you have a little bit extra time to prepare, but throwing Mike Hawkins Jr. in there as a true freshman, just his second start against a Texas team that's number 1 in the country right now, that is a tall order, and I think that is probably the most difficult game remaining on the schedule at this point.
Yeah, it's not great content. We all agree, but I think that's exactly what it is. Texas, like I said, is always going to be the top game for OU no matter what. It doesn't matter the rankings or, just the way those two teams don't like each other. That's what it is. And then Alabama, as I said earlier, let's say Alabama is the Lincoln Riley OU teams from past. That means they're going to be in a lot of shootouts. Like I said earlier, OU can't get in a shootout. Like that's just not going to help them out. Like that's not a recipe for success for them. So those are the 2 games I kind of circle, and it's like, okay, let's see where they are. Those are the litmus tests of OU. But this week, Texas, I mean, they're number 1 in the country. They're feeling really good about themselves. OU is struggling coming into it, like offensively, trying to figure themselves out pretty much. So this is the biggest test. It's the biggest test for them because you're going against a team that their confidence is just so high. It's tough playing a team that is very confident in themselves because they just feel like they can't do no wrong. They're going to play that way. I mean, they feel really good about themselves, and OU has to come in and pretty much dominate and take that away from them. That's the first test, is taking that away from them and then beating them on the field. So that's how it happens. So Texas is going to be the biggest game as of right now.
Yeah, I mean, I can't disagree. I don't want to overreact too much to the Auburn game, but based off what I saw there, I just think Oklahoma, the way they're trying to win games, it doesn't really get affected much on the road. His defense travels, obviously. I don't think that's going to change much being on the road. And then, talked about it before, but I just think Mike Hawkins has got the right temperament, personality, however you want to term it, to just kind of not really be too fazed by going on the road. I mean, if he's not fazed by that crowd as a true freshman in his first start, I'm kind of wondering, like, why would it happen any other time? I mean, obviously we'll see. It's 1 game, but that's kind of where my mindset is. So the road trip aspect isn't as big of a deal as I would have maybe thought earlier in the year. So like going to the Grove, going to Death Valley, not that those are going to be easy places to play, but like I said, defense travels. Michael Hawkins, if he takes care of the ball, like all that stuff. So at that point, you're just kind of looking at best team. And It's hard not to feel like that's Texas right now, although I do still think, like Tom said, that Alabama's really good. I'm not going to get fooled by the Vanderbilt game. They're still really good. Jalen Milroe's still a Heisman candidate. But, yeah, I mean, I think this weekend is probably your toughest test. If you win this weekend, I think you can feel confident about every game you play moving forward.
Yeah.
And
On
that note,
that's exactly what it is. Yeah, if they win this game, that is like, okay, this team is for real. Like all the problems they've had, getting healthy and trying to find the right quarterback. If you can do it here, that puts you in a different stratosphere. Like you're a top 10 team now. You jump all the way up, things like that, because you change perception of yourself. Because a lot of the people that have been talking about the Auburn game, when you look at the national pundits, they've been saying Auburn gave the game away, not OU found a way to come back and win that game. That's what it seems to me like I've been noticing. So, like, make it about you. Make it about you, not the other team lost, and you got to really talk about that team losing and what they did wrong. Oklahoma needs to find its way to make itself, the big superpower in the SEC at that point, if you do that.
For sure. 100%. So on that note, obviously we're going to have the game preview on Friday morning where we'll dive into this game, all aspects of it. We'll pick it. We'll have our keys, all that good stuff. But for now, just some initial thoughts here. I mean, Texas is about a 2-score favorite, depending on where you look, but roughly about a 2-touchdown favorite. Like we said, Quinn Ewers is expected to be back. Last year's game was the emotion was so high, and after what happened the year before, this game is a circus every time. You never really know what to expect. It is the most cliche of cliche to throw the record books out, and it kind of is the case with this game. You think you know what's going to happen. It tends to zig when you think it's going to zag. Some thoughts for you guys on this game, just kind of where you're at headspace-wise as we kind of kick off this week. That's one of the biggest weeks, obviously, of the year, every single year, because it's one of the greatest rivalries in the sport, and we're excited to get to be down there again. But where you kind of at with this game as it stands on Monday? Oklahoma's a big underdog here, but it kind of feels like the way they play, that they could be in this thing as well. So where are you guys kind of at? Just a little temperature check on Monday for this game on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, the defense is going to have its work cut out for it. Right. I think that they're going to. You look back to last year's game. Oklahoma had 5 sacks. Did a pretty good job getting after Quinn Ewers, even though his completion percentage was kind of absurd because they did a lot of short, quick passing game for him. But if the defense can continue to get the kind of pass rush it's gotten through the first 5 games and, affect Quinn Ewers a little bit, maybe force him in a mistake, get a turnover like they've been doing so well through these first 5 games, then I like Oklahoma's chances more. It's not going to be easy for them regardless, especially with how the offense has been playing. I'm curious to see what they're able to cook up offensively with kind of an extra week off to maybe tailor things around Mike Hawkins a little bit more.
Yeah, right.
That's really the most intriguing thing for me coming into this game. But yeah, it's going to be a battle. It's going to be a tough matchup for Oklahoma. I mean, Texas is, number 1 in the country for a reason right now. They've looked really impressive so far, even though they, outside of going up to Michigan, which obviously Michigan is not what it was last year. They haven't really been battle tested quite yet. But I still think they're a very good team right now, and it's going to be interesting to see how this one plays out.
Yeah, I think Texas is just a well-rounded team. And I think that's the situation for them. Like they're good everywhere, so they don't really have a weakness that you can just exploit at this time, like we haven't seen necessarily. And so that's been the biggest difference for them, because when you're sound everywhere, then you just go in and you can beat good teams, and that's what they've done so far, I think, this season. Now, going into the year, we thought the defensive tackles for the Texas was going to be like the weakness, but I haven't really seen that either. So like OU has to figure that out offensively, what they're going to do in terms of how to beat them on the defensive side, because I think they're sound in all situations. Now, defensively for OU, how to beat Texas. Like you did it last year. It's the same quarterback, same kind of similar wide receiver group, but I think actually got a little bit worse than where they were last year in terms of wide receiver talent and
running
things
back
like that.
Beat up.
The running back, they lost a running back before the season. Yeah. And so you have other guys that they didn't want to start being in there right now to figure that out. So defensively, how to do this. You kind of have to just execute. Like, where you need to be, find a way to do it. Like the way Gentry Williams jumped the route last year on the opening drive. Like stuff like that has to happen.
Mhm.
You have to have that situation for the defensive side, and then just offensively, it's going to be the biggest question. Where are they? Like I said earlier, I mean that's where I'm at with it in terms of this Red River Rivalry week.
No, I'm with you. This is the one team that for Brent Venables, there's something to go off of. He said that a few times. We've had to plan for all new teams, all new league. This is the one that you have some framework of previous matchups to kind of work from. But yeah, I agree. I'm really fascinated too by just like I kind of touched on it a little bit, but the mental aspect of this game. Last year they were so laser focused on this game the whole offseason, right? I mean, it was after what happened the year before, 49-0. They did the sit-ups or whatever it was.
49 medicine ball sit-ups.
Yeah, the medicine ball. There was this mindset the whole year of getting revenge for that game. You won it this time. But they've also been given the gift of being severely doubted. They're big underdogs. Texas is number 1. And, a lot of people have kind of written off last year's game to just kind of being one of those fluky rivalry things. Like, there was the whole offseason, the conversation was Texas is right for the SEC, Oklahoma's not, even though, again, OU won the game last year when they played.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they do have that benefit of having that kind of that just handing you a chip on your shoulder kind of thing. But can they replicate that mentality last year where they just, your motivation, it's obvious for this game, but they just had that extra juice last year that can they replicate that? I think they certainly can, but I'm fascinated on the mental part of it this week because there was just, we talked before we came on the air, there was like 3 or 4 players in the player interviews, which is a way lower number of that Monday last year before the game. Like it was a laser focused mindset. Are they going to be able to produce that again? I think they can, but I'm curious to see it. So it's fascinating. For my money, the greatest game in the world. I'm very excited. I can't wait to get down there again. It's the best. It's the most inconvenient game ever for fans, for media. It's hot. The Cotton Bowl is old. It doesn't have like a lot of accommodations. It's hard to get there, traffic, all that. And it's still the greatest because it's just one of a kind. And here we go. We're looking forward to it.
I mean, at least with the 2:30 kickoff this year, we can get there early in the morning and actually go to the fair a little bit.
A lot of flexibility. The Fletcher's corn dog for breakfast is back.
Oh my gosh!
Back in college days here. It's gonna be
awesome. Eat with you, man. I can't eat with you. Corn dog.
It's the Texas State Fair. I mean, what are the options?
The options are limitless.
Yeah, I got you.
Well, I mean, options as far as James is talking about being healthy. That's not a thing. That does not exist.
Get you a fried salad.
Fried salad.
It probably have something crazy like that anyway. Over
if
there.
they got fried butter, they got fried salad. I think that's it for now. Obviously, we're just kicking off what's going to be an awesome week. Always is OU Texas week. We'll have player interviews tonight, so we're all going to be getting down to Norman for that. Brent Venables press conference tomorrow down in Norman, so keep an eye out for that. Obviously, coverage on the site, Oklahoma at 247sports.com, as well as the YouTube channel, Sooners Illustrated, Oklahoma 24/7 Sports. We'll be back on Thursday with the recruiting show with Colin. Obviously, James will be on that as well. Got OU's the home team this year, so they can have visitors. It's already a massive list getting piled together, as you'd expect. Yep. So we'll dive into all that with Colin on Thursday, and then we'll have the game preview, the 3 of us, on Friday, where we'll lock in our keys and we'll pick this thing. Last year, picking this thing did not go well for us in a variety of ways. A, we were wrong, and B, we were wrong in the wrong direction for the team we cover. So we'll see where we go on Friday. We got to let this marinate all week long, but it's going to be fun. One of the funnest weeks of the year. So
we'll see if we've learned our lessons or if we're gluttons for punishment. And
I know it's like it's a fool me once situation. It's a fool me once situation. I'm a little nervous how it's going to go, but we'll see. I think that's it for now, though. We'll be back on Thursday. It's next edition of Sooners Illustrated podcast. Game preview on Friday for Tom Green, James D. Jackson. I'm Josh Callaway. We'll see you guys right back here next time on the Sooners Illustrated podcast.
See you.